here with Olivia. In this video, I'm going to be reviewing the new movie that just came out, The Monkey. Sadly, I did not get there in time to put out a review, but I still will. Because honestly, I had some very interesting thoughts on it. And this movie turned out to have a different outcome than I expected it to be. Now, before I give anything away and before we get started, please hit that subscribe button, ring that notification bell, and maybe check out something from my merch store to show some support. Alright, let's get started. Now, I feel like I say this every single time I put out a review for a new movie, but I had no expectations for this movie, and I honestly had no idea what it was about. I've never seen the trailers for The Monkey, I've never read the book, because this movie, The Monkey, is based off of a Stephen King novel, so it's, based off of a book, and they turned it into a movie. I've, never heard of this before. Didn't have any high expectations. Horror movies are kind of suffering out of all the genres of movies nowadays. It's very hard to, have a good horror movie that, makes sense and is also still scary and fun. So I did not expect The Monkey to be this good. This movie was honestly really entertaining. Okay, to start off with, The Monkey is a crisp, beautiful 1 hour and 38 minute film. None of this 2 hour, 2.5 hour bullshit. 1.5 hours. Beautiful. And even better, it's a horror comedy. So not only is it creepy, but it's also funny too. We got 2 horror comedy back-to-back reviews, Shaun of the Dead and The Monkey. There's a long list of actors and actresses in here. None of them really ring a bell with me. The only person I know is Elijah Wood, who plays our beloved Frodo in Lord of the Rings. Anywho, I'll go over the plot really quick, spoiler free, so you guys don't have to worry about getting things ruined for you. And once again, I'm going to try and make this review short, so it's going to be a very brief overview of the plot. Very short, very sweet, Sabrina Carpenter style. So this movie is about this main character, his name is Hal, played by Theo James, and his twin brother, Bill, find their father's old toy monkey thing in his closet. But it turns out this toy monkey has a little more to it. A series of gruesome, awful, not common deaths start occurring throughout the family, and then pretty soon they happen all around the town. And these aren't simple deaths or common ones. These are something so diabolically insane, like getting lit on fire and then running face first into a pitchfork, and then falling into the ocean and drowning. Something weird like that. And the 2 brothers think it has something to do with the monkey. Now, at the beginning of the movie, the first kind of half, they're kids, and then it flash forwards 25 years later where they're grown adults. Because Stephen King loves his time jumps. Now, since I had no idea what this movie was about, and I've never seen the trailers, going into this movie, I thought this was gonna be some demon crap where the monkey could summon spirits and ghosts and haunting stuff. I don't know. I have no idea where I got that from, but I just did. So I was very surprised to find out that it was nothing like that at all. This movie is rated R and very, very violent. So I would not bring your little kids, obviously. Also, if you don't really have a stomach for that type of thing, I wouldn't watch it. I mean, it's no Texas Chainsaw Massacre, but also it's not very scary either. I would not consider this movie to be scary. I just consider it to be violent. And the whole mystery with the killings and who's really behind this kind of has a Scream vibe going on. I'd say this movie kind of had a Scream vibe to it, just with was way more violent, obviously. But in order for the monkey to do its whatever it does, I don't want to spoil it. So in order for the monkey to do something bad, it has to bang the stick it holds onto the drum. Well, in order for it to do that, someone has to turn the key. So not only is there a whole mystery going on with what the monkey is, but also there's a mystery going on later in the movie, who's killing all these people and turning the key. And honestly, the comedy in this movie was very shocking and surprising. I was not expecting this movie to be funny at all, but it was hilarious. I mean, okay, this is not spoiling anything. This is just an example because this example has nothing to do with the plot or like storyline at all. It was just like something fun they put in the movie. But someone died and the two brothers went to the funeral and this priest comes up. He was like this younger dude, like in his 20s or like late teens. He was clearly either high or like very, very unqualified and unprofessional. He goes up there and he's like, "Death, man. This sucks. I mean, whatever happens, happens though." And at one point, this priest goes up there for the first time and he looks in the casket at the dead person. He's like, "Oh, geez." And what I also liked about this movie, besides it being hilarious and there being like awesome violent scenes, was the plot was actually very intriguing and it made sense in the first half. I'd say 2/3 out of this movie was really good and it would have been amazing, but it kind of like lost the plot a little at the end and they just did some things that like I didn't really like. Stephen King tends to do that. Like his stuff all like is really amazing in the first half and like second half, but then by the ending he kind of struggles to like tie some things together. Now, It Chapter 1, another movie and like book he did, was amazing. Loved it. But then It Chapter 2, when he had to tie everything together, was really weak and really kind of bad. Like the whole thing they did when they made Pennywise like this weird spider alien thing, like that wasn't even scary. That was just campy at that point. Like his clown form was way cooler and creepier than like his true alien spider thing. This movie was not that bad. Like with the ending, I just didn't like the things they focused on with the main brother, Hal, in the time jump. Cause like in the time jump, they gave him a son that he wanted to like keep away from him because death always tends to happen whenever Hal and his brother are around. So Hal's like, "Yeah, I only see my son for a week once a year." So like his son doesn't know him because he only sees him once a year. And they had like this whole plot thing going on with his son, how he's like a bad father because he went through something traumatic when he was younger. Okay, I mean, I get it. You want to protect your son from, like, all this dark energy you have around you and your family history. But, like, what's the point of having him? Like, his son did nothing for the plot and development. Like, if anything, it just made Hal's character kind of worse because it showed that, like, he wasn't a great father. It was just very unnecessary to give him a son. Even at the end, when they tried to, like, tie everything together and they wrapped up the story, it was still unnecessary. And I'm just not a fan of that actor. Hal's son in the movie is named Petey, played by Colin O'Brien. And in this movie, he was an NPC. He was awful. I mean, there would be brutal murders happening while Petey was around, and he witnessed a lot of them. Or Hal would kind of be acting a little sketchy and shady. That would make, like, most kids, when they see their parents kind of going through that, very uncomfortable. And also, if you watch something being brutally murdered right in front of you, you're not just gonna stand there like, I mean, at one point, Petey gets, like, slapped in the face and thrown across the floor, hits into the wall, and then he just stands up, straight face, walks away to go get Hal. It's like bro's a robot and he didn't even get hit at all. His acting was so bad. Like, I can't even justify his acting by saying he was in, like, shock or something, because it didn't even look like he was in shock either. But other than Petey, the rest of the characters' acting was pretty good. I mean, I had no issues with everyone else. Hal and Billy as kids, their mom, all of them was amazing. Then later in the movie, when there was that time jump, Hal was kind of awkward with his acting. Everybody in the time jump, the acting just got really weird. Like, they were all really nonchalant for seeing tons of murders and deaths. And even when they were hurrying, they're like, we gotta go, we gotta go. Like, notice how my face was like this? Their faces were like, we gotta go, we gotta go. Like, there was no emotion behind any of it. I would not say this movie was, like, my top 10 favorite movies of this year or anything. I really did enjoy Wolfman more than this movie, just because I liked Wolfman. Like, even though sometimes it kind of lost the plot a little, I liked that movie, genuinely. And this movie would have been better if it had more of, like, a creepy, eerie vibe to it, because this movie wasn't scary. And also, if the time jump stuff after that, like the whole last act of the movie, wasn't kind of that weird. The Monkey wasn't, once again, like, it wasn't a horror. I feel like if I could, like, rename this genre, I'd say it was a thriller comedy. Because there was really nothing scary about this. Even the monkey, like, at times, the monkey looked kind of cute when it had, like, its wide eyes. Like, the monkey didn't even look scary. Like, my dad at one point, at the beginning of the movie, turned to me and he's like, hey, the monkey's kind of cute. And I was like, you know, thinking my dad was mental. But then I was, like, halfway through the film, when the monkey was just banging on his drums, I was like, oh yeah, he is kind of cute. And I think what really would have made this movie so much better, now that I think about it, is if there was just no time jump at all. Like, I did not care to see them as adults. In fact, my favorite was when they were kids. Because not only was the acting so much better, but also it was funny. And kids are innocent, kids are pure, they get, like, scared easily. Like, kids just feel so many more emotions than adults do. So at times, I feel like the acting was kind of awkward between adult Hal and Billy, because they were, like, adults, so they were trying to act more, like, mature. Versus when they were kids, they, you know, didn't have to worry about all that. I think The Monkey would have been better as a book. I do kind of want to try and read the book because I feel like as a movie, it just wasn't scary and it didn't, like, have as much intensity to it as the book would be. Because, you know, when you read books, we can each picture things in our head all different. Like, we all picture things uniquely. So I think the movie just kind of dulled the imagination factor and it didn't pull in all the emotions and feelings that Stephen King originally had in his book. Probably. I've never read this thing before, but I'm talking about, like, my experiences with books and then watching the movies after. They're usually a little disappointing than what my brain can come up with. But I do recommend still watching this movie. I usually say, just because of how expensive things are nowadays, to wait till it comes out on streaming. But honestly, I thought this was still a good, like, theater movie, too. Now, the theater I go to absolutely sucks. It's uncomfortable. There's always technical difficulties. The lights are always bright and never shut off fully. So if you have kind of like a trashy ghetto theater, I would not recommend going to it just to see this movie because, once again, the ending wasn't that great. But if you have, like, a good theater, like a normal, up-to-standards theater, then I do recommend going to see this movie. The Monkey is very fast-paced, though. I will give it that. I mean, there was a couple parts that I was like, okay, they really didn't need to add this. But for the most part, I mean, it moved very quickly and it started up very fast. But otherwise, this was just a simple, thriller, fun comedy movie. If you're worried about seeing this movie because you think it's gonna be scary, I assure you it's not. Just violent, so be prepared. And maybe don't bring any hot dogs or pizza to eat, because there is a lot of intestines and organs being pulled out. Overall, I think I'd rate this movie a 6 out of 10. Just because the ending really kind of lost the plot a little and just wasn't as good as the first and second half of the movie. And if it would have just been the first half and second half and they kind of did what I said they should have done, just kept the Hal and Billy, the main two boys, as kids, or at least not given Hal a son at all because I thought that was all dumb, then the movie would have been a 9 out of 10 because honestly, the first and second half of the movie was a 10 out of 10 until they did the whole time jump stuff. But yeah, I think it helped that I went into the movie with, like, no expectations, knowing nothing it was about. So honestly, I recommend just, like, stop watching trailers for movies unless you, like, absolutely have to because you're in a theater and they show the trailers. But just go into movies knowing nothing, being blind, and you might enjoy it more than if you had known stuff about it. But otherwise, let me know in the comments down below if you've seen this movie, what you think, your thoughts, if you're planning on seeing it. Make sure to like and subscribe if you've enjoyed. Hit that notification bell, check out my merch store. Click the link right under my description, and go check this movie out. But otherwise, thanks for watching, and I hope I'll see you around.